It's been a big week in cruise news, good and bad. There have been several deaths at sea, cruises canceled, and more. You'll want to stick around until the end to hear about one couple's horror story on board a Royal Caribbean cruise. Ahoy, travelers. It's Amy here with your weekly Cruise News Roundup and my thoughts on some of the biggest stories of the week. This week we saw multiple tragedies occur, including two separate man overboard stories. While I already touched on these in my daily news shorts, it bears repeating the details. A 28-year-old man jumped off the Carnival Glory this week. At first, there was some question when he was reported missing whether he went overboard or was just someone on the ship and not responding to the overhead announcements. But video footage did end up showing that the man had intentionally jumped from deck 4 where the lifeboats are. A couple days later, reports came out that a 30-year-old male crew member on an MSC ship went overboard. At the time of filming, it's yet to be released whether this was intentional or an accident, but he was seen going overboard, which meant markers could be tossed into the water and a search and rescue operation began immediately. Despite that, the crew member was unable to be located. Two tragic deaths, which brings us to, I believe, 14 different individuals going overboard cruise ships this year. While this number might make it seem like cruising isn't safe, the majority of these were intentional acts by desperate people. Someone chooses to take their own life. Nothing can stop them if they're truly determined. I will continue to state that there is no such thing as a truly accidental fall from a cruise ship. You don't just lean over a balcony and accidentally fall overboard. Even when they're not intentional, a series of bad choices always leads up to such an event. Alcohol's usually the culprit, but also people putting themselves in harm's way for like a selfie or just making stupid decisions like standing on deck furniture or climbing from one deck to another, which has happened. These are all preventable accidents. Despite these 14 incidences, it's important to remember that millions of people cruise each year without incident, making it one of the safest ways to travel and vacation. One of the biggest tragedies of the week has been the sinking of a ferry boat in the Bahamas on Tuesday. Full of Royal Caribbean passengers out on a snorkel excursion, the double-decker boat took on water when a large wave struck the boat in rough seas, causing it to begin to list and sink. Video taken by passengers show the chaos that ensued as passengers attempted to scramble for safety. A statement from Blue Lagoon Island read, "Emergency teams from the island quickly arrived to render assistance. Passengers and 5 staff members were located and brought to the island, and 2 passengers were taken to the hospital for additional care. All on board are accounted for." Unfortunately, a 75-year-old woman died in the incident, though the details of her death have not been confirmed. It's unknown whether or not she may have had pre-existing health concerns that could have been aggravated by the stress of the incident. Royal Caribbean has canceled all shore excursions to Blue Lagoon Island through November 23rd as authorities investigate the incident. This includes tours such as beach breaks, dolphin swims, stingray encounters, and similar excursions. Just watching the video calls into question how prepared the operators of the excursions and ship itself are for emergencies. There didn't seem to be any organization or plan for what to do in this sort of situation. As someone who could swim, personally, I feel like watching these videos, I just would have gotten a life vest and jumped overboard and made my way away from the sinking vessel. Even in choppy waters, I'm pretty sure I could tread water with a life vest on long enough for rescue boats to get there. I would have thought that you would need to be able to swim in order to go on a snorkel excursion. However, this is a ferry boat as well, and it's kind of unclear as to whether everybody on board was on this excursion or there might have been people just using it as a ferry to get to the island. I have wondered if the fact that it was a double-decker boat had something to do with the chaos and confusion. If you're on the top deck, it would be harder to get off the boat. And here's the thing. I've watched these videos. I don't know. I saw some comments on Instagram on one of the videos, and people were like, look, it's 70-degree water in the tropics. It was 20 feet deep. The water wasn't super deep. They had life vests on. It's like, just get in the water. Why are people not getting in the water? And I kind of feel that way myself. Like, maybe people couldn't swim and that was the problem. I'm still confused about that. But if you have a life vest on, that shouldn't be an issue. Just get in the water, get away from... There were already rescue boats there in this last video, and you see them right there. People were picking passengers up. You just needed to get in the water and wait 20 minutes. So I don't know. I know it would have been a scary situation. That's real, but I do feel like they had time. This wasn't the Titanic. They weren't in 20-degree water. So I don't know. Maybe I would feel differently if I was in the middle of that situation, but as someone who can swim, I just feel like getting off the boat as quickly as possible once you realized we're going down and just swimming a little bit away and floating there in the warm waters of the tropics probably would have been the best idea. Before we get to the shock one couple received when they walked into their balcony cabin, if you enjoy this video and maybe even learned something, consider subscribing with the notification bell on so you don't miss any future posts. Be sure to hit that like button as well. It only takes a second, and doing so helps cruisers like you find us. Well, one couple had a nasty surprise when they went to check out their balcony cabin on the Allure of the Seas this week. When they first got into the cabin, they found no carpeting, upended furniture, no bedding, and industrial dryers were running. Walking into their cabin wasn't the first indication there were issues, though. Apparently, the problems began prior to even stepping onto the ship for their 4-night cruise to the Bahamas. When the couple went to check in at the terminal, they were told something was wrong with their reservation, but they were still able to get checked in and board the ship. When they were able to go to their cabin, they found that there was no room key waiting for them, so then they had to go down to guest services. And if you've ever had to go to guest services or you've just walked by guest services on embarkation day, you will know that they had a long line to wait in before they were able to get their ship cards. They said 40 minutes. I'm actually surprised it wasn't longer. Regular cruisers will know that walking into the cabin for the first time, no matter if it's an interior or suite, it's just this wonderful moment. At least it is for us. This is your home away from home for the next several days or weeks if you're lucky enough. And walking through that door is often when you really feel like, hey, I'm on a cruise. Imagine instead of seeing a made-up bed, welcome letter, and a stateroom ready to begin a wonderful cruise, you find bare flooring with torn up carpet, obvious water damage, bare bedsteads upended, and a mattress without bedding, furniture in disarray, this foul odor, and industrial fans working away to dry out the cabin. According to the couple, it took 3 hours to sort out the confusion and get a new cabin. Their originally booked cabin had flooded during the previous cruise and was under repair. Unfortunately, their reassignment to a different stateroom hadn't been communicated well prior to check-in. It hadn't made it all the way through the system, I guess. Their boarding passes showed their original one, so when it's the cabin they went to, and then whenever they found out they didn't have room keys, they look, and for some reason the computer doesn't show guest services. Oh, there's been a change, so they give them the keys to that cabin. Well, finally getting to their new stateroom didn't even mean the end of their troubles, as the newly assigned cabin had been booked apparently previously for a different family and still had children's bracelets and welcome information for that family inside, as well as a delivery of chocolate-covered strawberries. The couple was given $300 of onboard credit to make up for the inconvenience. But that was not what they wanted. They weren't happy with it. What they wanted was a full refund that day so they could forget the cruise and just go home. They also claimed that guest services told them that they would get an upgrade room, but that the new cabin was the same class as the original. Now, it's unsure about that. They say that it's the same because it was a balcony on the same deck, but that doesn't actually mean it wasn't an upgrade. We don't really know. They also claim that the situation wasn't resolved in a timely manner like the cruise line claimed it was. What do you think? Would $300 of onboard credit be enough for the 3 hours it took for this situation to be resolved? A full refund is against policy when a comparable stateroom is available. But I don't know why someone would be that upset in this situation. Just say, I'm out.
Screw you guys, I'm going home.
That's $50 an hour per person for their trouble. Honestly, I think this would just make for a funny story to tell. I mean, you still got a cabin, you still got to cruise. It's 3 hours of your time wasted. Yes, 3 hours of stress maybe, but you got $300 of onboard credit and a funny story. I can understand being upset if you found out that your room was damaged and that there was no available rooms, so the line just canceled your cruise. That would make me mad. But let me know in the comments, do you think the compensation was reasonable? Let's end this week's news on a good note. The Carnival Jubilee has successfully completed her sea trials and has returned to the dock in Emshaven for finishing details like flooring, lighting, artwork, all that kind of stuff, before she ends up setting sail to Galveston. The ship's sea trials have been conducted in the North Sea over 10 days with a full team of engineers, technicians, and officers on board. The trials rigorously tested all of her technical and operational systems, including navigation, propulsion, turning, braking, stabilization, emergency responses, and more. The next major step will be the Jubilee formally being handed over to Carnival. At that time, the Jubilee will become the 26th ship in Carnival's fleet. Personally, this is great news for us as we will be sailing on her in January. When we first booked our cruise, I wanted to make sure that we were far enough out from its scheduled launch date in October to not lose our cruise in case of delays. And I am definitely glad we did, since they pushed back the launch date from October to December. Thankfully, there were no further delays, and we will be among some of the first to experience this new ship, while there is still being several weeks for the crew to get used to the ship and each other. I've heard too many stories of inaugural cruises not going as planned due to venues not being fully completed, shows not being ready, and more. Why not stick around and check out this video and then come back for more information designed to help you have an amazing cruise. Have a blessed week, everyone.